So picture this. You are not looking at a shining white castle, right? And there are definitely no beautiful maidens throwing flower petals from sunlit balconies.
Oh, absolutely not.
No. You are staring into pitch black darkness. And then a single rusted iron gauntlet just slams into this thick, freezing wet mud.
It's that horrible, heavy sound.
Exactly. You hear the metallic crunch of armored boots just dragging through the muck. It is pouring rain. And in the distance, there's this low, groaning war horn echoing.
Right.
And honestly, it sounds less like a call to battle and more like a death rattle.
It really does set a terrifying stage.
It does. So welcome to the archives, because today our mission for this deep dive is to unearth a forbidden, just incredibly brutal secret from Westerosi history.
We are definitely going into the mud today.
We really are. We are totally stripping away that romantic illusion of knights in shining armor. We're looking at this terrifying moment when the ruling class essentially weaponized their own sacred laws, and, well, the kingdom nearly tore itself apart from the inside.
Yeah, we are digging into some of the darkest, most carefully obscured lore in the archival records today. We are examining the Ashford tourney.
Right.
Specifically, the sudden resurrection of this barbaric legal relic from the ancient Andal invaders, a thing known as the Trial of Seven.
Which is just wild.
It is, but I mean, if you want to understand Westerosi history, you really have to look at these visceral moments, the moments where the highest ideals of chivalry just crash head-on into the cynical, blood-soaked machinery of feudal politics.
Okay, let's unpack this mechanism, because a Trial of Seven is not your standard honorable one-on-one duel at dawn.
No, not at all.
It's a 14-man melee.
Yeah.
It's absolute chaos. But the thing I don't fully grasp is the legal precedent here. Like, why 14 men? How does a legal system even accommodate what is essentially a small-scale war just to determine justice?
Well, it really comes down to the theology of the faith of the Seven. So the Andal invaders who originally brought this religion to Westeros, they believed that the gods would always favor the just in a trial by combat.
Right, the classic divine judgment idea.
Exactly. But the Trial of Seven takes that belief and just scales it up to a grotesque extreme.
Wow.
The logic sort of dictates that if one single champion represents the judgment of the gods, then, 7 champions fighting 7 accusers represents the ultimate undeniable will of the heavens.
I mean, that sounds pious on paper, but
But practically speaking, it's horrifying. It is basically an archaic piece of legislation designed to function as a legal filibuster for the ultra-rich.
oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. It essentially guarantees victory for whoever has the wealth and the political capital to hire the absolute most lethal killers in the realm. I mean, the last king to invoke this specific nightmare before the Ashford tourney was Maegor the Cruel.
Jeez, Maegor the Cruel.
Yeah. That alone tells us this is purely a tool of tyrants.
So it's way less about divine justice and a lot more about overwhelming force. And the rules are just terrifying. So a man stands accused, right? If he cannot find exactly 6 men willing to stand, fight, and very likely die by his side, he just forfeits the trial.
That's the law.
And the penalty for forfeiting isn't just, paying a fine or doing a stint in the dungeons. It is severe, brutal mutilation.
Yeah, it's gruesome.
They chop off a hand and a foot, and then they execute you. You are literally butchered just for failing to assemble a private army.
Precisely. And this is exactly why this historical case study is so fascinating. This isn't just some fantasy story about swords and shields.
Right.
What's fascinating here is that it's a brutal examination of what happens when the legal system is blatantly manipulated by the apex of the ruling class. They're using it to crush someone who has absolutely zero institutional protection.
Which perfectly brings us to the accused and the accuser at Ashford. Because the scales of justice here are so unbalanced, it almost borders on the absurd.
Oh, completely.
The man demanding this trial is Prince Aerion Targaryen, also known as Aerion Brightflame.
A truly unhinged individual.
Totally unhinged. And Aerion isn't just bringing some local lords to fight for him. He actually fields a roster that includes his own father, Prince Maekar, his brother, Prince Daeron, and get this, 3 knights of the Kingsguard.
Yeah, we really need to pause and emphasize what the Kingsguard represents in this era of history.
Please do, because it's insane.
These guys are not just bodyguards. They are the deadliest, most elite killers on the entire continent. They wear this pure white armor, they swear sacred vows to protect the royal family, and they operate with just total impunity.
Right.
Facing one Kingsguard knight is usually a guaranteed death sentence, so facing 3 of them, alongside 3 members of the actual royal family, it's an orchestrated execution that's just masquerading as a trial.
And then on the other side of this impending bloodbath, you have Sir Duncan the Tall.
Dunk.
Let's define exactly what a hedge knight is, because it's crucial for you to understand his vulnerability here. He isn't some high lord.
Yeah.
He isn't part of a great house. He is a freelancer who literally grew up in the absolute worst slums of Flea Bottom.
He has nothing.
Right. He has no union, no guild, no lord to vouch for him, and 0 steady income. The guy is wearing rust and chainmail and a chipped iron half-helm he inherited from a dead guy.
Yeah, his old master.
So facing the royal family in a legal battle of champions like this, it's like a modern-day gig worker having to face a massive conglomerate's army of corporate lawyers. Except here, the lawyers are carrying broadswords.
That is such an excellent way to frame it. I mean, playing by the rules of chivalry here is like bringing a rusty spoon to a dragon fight. Dunk has absolutely no systemic leverage.
None.
And the incident that actually triggered this entire crisis, it really highlights the utter decay of the nobility. Like, why is Dunk even facing execution?
Right, what did you do?
He upheld a true knight's vow.
Wow.
He physically stepped in and stopped Prince Arion from sadistically torturing a totally helpless puppeteer named Tansel. Dunk did what literally every song and story claims a knight should do. He defended the innocent.
But the highborn lords, the ones who were just sitting in their silken pavilions with their colorful banners flying, they just sat there and watched Arion break this woman's fingers.
Yeah.
They did absolutely nothing.
Because for the nobility, honor is just a performance. It's a game. Their true religion is proximity to power.
It is so dark.
It is. Interfering with a Targaryen prince, even a famously cruel one, is just political suicide. So the silence of those nobles when Dunk steps in sets the stage for a terrifying reality.
Right, he has to find 6 guys.
Exactly. He has to find 6 men to stand with him against the dragon. And if the established lords won't even speak up to stop a simple torture in broad daylight, who, in their right mind, would risk their life, their lands, and their family's standing to fight the royal family over a penniless hedge knight?
Well, nobody in their right mind, that's for sure. Which means Dunk is forced to look in the darkest, angriest corners of the tourney grounds. Because highborn honor is functionally dead, Dunk's little fellowship ends up being this wild collection of misfits, madmen, and guys with just deep-seated violent grudges.
Let's actually analyze that first wave of allies, because their motivations really strip away any remaining illusions of some noble fairy tale rescue.
Oh, for sure.
This isn't a group of selfless heroes. It's basically an assembly of opportunists and the deeply vengeful.
Yeah, so first you have Sir Humphrey Harding.
Oh.
And Harding is showing up to a 14-man melee with a literally shattered leg.
Unbelievable.
His leg was broken because Prince Arion dishonorably impaled Harding's horse during a joust earlier in the tourney.
Arion is just the worst.
Truly. So Harding can barely even stand up, but he basically drags himself through the mud, declaring that as long as he can sit on a horse, he can fight.
The pure spite.
Oh, pure spite. And he brings along his brother-in-law, Sir Humphrey Beesbury, and then you also have Sir Robin Riesling, who is this grizzled, one-eyed greybeard.
The archival reality here is just so grim. Because these men, they do not care about Sir Duncan the Tall.
Not at all.
They are fighting purely for vengeance, as is obviously the case with Harding. Or they're fighting out of this ingrained, almost pathological bloodlust, like Riesling. They have their own deep grievances against Targaryen arrogance.
Right.
Dunk's trial is merely providing them with a legally sanctioned, religiously protected excuse to try and draw royal blood without being immediately executed for high treason. Dunk is literally just the legal loophole they need.
But even with, a broken man, a one-eyed graybeard, and a brother-in-law, Dunk is still desperately short of numbers.
Yeah, he needs 3 more.
The tension is just suffocating at this point. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the lore introduces one of the most terrifying and awe-inspiring figures in all of Westerosi history.
Oh, yes.
You hear this huge crash of thunder, and then this booming, borderline insane laughter just echoing across the camp. Enter Ser Lyonel Baratheon, the heir to Storm's End, the Laughing Storm.
An absolute titan of a man. But we really have to look past the mythology of the laughing storm here and analyze the intense political calculation behind his laughter.
Right, because my immediate question when I read this was, why does a Lord of House Baratheon, a guy with unimaginable wealth and status, risk his life for a flea-bottomed beggar?
Exactly.
I mean, he's massive, he's wearing armor, crowned with an antlered stag that literally crackles with lightning, and he clearly finds combat genuinely hilarious. But he isn't doing this for charity, is he?
No, not at all. Lyonel Baratheon joins for two very specific reasons: glory and political messaging.
Okay, lay that out for me.
Well, a trial of 7 hasn't happened in a century. So for a warrior of his caliber, the opportunity to secure his legend in history is just irresistible.
That makes sense.
But more importantly, the Baratheons are acutely aware of Targaryen overreach. By stepping onto that field, Lyonel is legally smashing Targaryen princes into the mud without having to officially start a full-scale rebellion against the Iron Throne. Yeah, it is a massive flex of martial power, completely wrapped up in the guise of religious justice.
Okay, so we've got the adrenaline, we've got the martial glory, the heavy political posturing, but Dunk is still sitting by his campfire doing this terrifying math in his head.
Yeah.
He has 5 men. He needs 1 more. His life hangs by a literal thread at this point. And this is where the history takes a really sharp turn from the battlefield right into the shadows. Because battles in Westeros aren't just won with swords in the mud.
No, they're won in the creeping, venomous reality of backroom deals. I mean, physical prowess on the field means absolutely nothing if your opponent outmaneuvers you off it. And Prince Aerion, for all of his sadistic madness, is an absolute master of this dark game.
He really is. So Dunk turns to a knight he had befriended earlier, the guy named Ser Stefan Fossoway of Cider Hall.
Right.
Stefan proudly wears the red apple sigil of his house. He's super charming, he constantly boasts about his skills, and he looks Duncan in the eye and gives his solemn sacred word as an anointed knight that he will be the 6th man.
He swears it.
He promises to ride at Dunk's side when dawn breaks. And Dunk finally feels this profound relief. He actually believes he has his 7.
But the archives reveal the chilling mechanics of Aerion's off-field strategy here. While Dunk is sleeping in the mud, getting ready for the fight, Prince Aerion is wide awake, just analyzing the board.
He's playing chess.
Exactly. Aerion sees the roster Dunk is putting together, he sees the Laughing Storm, and he sees the vengeful Harding. And he realizes that if Dunk actually fields a full team of 7, the royal family is in actual physical jeopardy.
Yeah, they could lose.
So Aerion deploys a strategy that is far more effective than just swinging an extra sword. He weaponizes the system itself. He uses bribery.
In the dead of night, Aerion secretly summons Stefan Fossoway. And I really struggle to understand how a knight can just abandon a sacred vow so easily. Like, how does Stefan logically justify this to himself without facing excommunication or losing his knighthood entirely?
Well, that is the dark brilliance of Aerion's maneuver.
Right.
In Westerosi high society, honor is strictly dictated by the victors.
Oh, I see.
Right. If Aerion wins the trial, Stefan isn't remembered as a vow breaker. He's recorded as a loyal servant of the crown who rooted out a dangerous traitor. Aerion promises to elevate Stefan, to make him a full lord, to grant him lands and vast wealth on one very simple condition: betray the hedge knight.
Unbelievable.
Aerion targets the exact vulnerability of the nobility, which is their endless, grasping ambition. It is essentially legal lawfare. Aerion uses his limitless royal resources to completely bankrupt Dunk's defense before the trial even begins.
The psychological cruelty of that is just astounding. So morning breaks, the sky is gray, the rain is still falling, just turning the tourney grounds into an absolute swamp. Thousands of spectators are holding their breath.
The atmosphere must have been incredibly tense.
Oh, for sure. Dunk is standing there with his 5 wild allies waiting for Stefan to arrive. And then the red apple banner emerges from the mist, but it's on the wrong side of the field.
Yep.
Stefan Fossoway rides out, fully armored, to stand right beside Prince Aerion.
It is the absolute decay of highborn honor put right there on public display. Stefan literally sold a stranger's life in the dark for a piece of parchment.
So put yourself in those steel boots for a second. You are staring down the deadliest killers on the entire continent, and the guy who swore to protect your flank has just been bought by the prosecution.
No, sickening.
This leaves Dunk in an impossible, fatal situation.
Yeah.
He only has 6 men again. The heralds are preparing to announce his forfeit. The executioners are literally stepping forward with their cleavers to take his hand and his foot.
The machinery of the law is just grinding him down into the dirt. But from the absolute disgust of that betrayal, we actually witness one of the most incredible spite-fueled acts of defiance in the entire historical record.
Yes, I love this part. Because Stefan brought his younger cousin and squire to the tourney, this young man named Raymond Fossoway. And Raymond is standing on the sidelines watching his own cousin sell out his honor. And Raymond is just vibrating with fury. He is so sickened by his own bloodline that he grabs a bucket of green paint and violently slashes it across his own wooden shield, just completely covering up the red apple of his family.
Such a powerful image. Raymond declares he will take his traitorous cousin's place. He says he will fight for Dunk, but there's a massive legal obstacle here.
Yeah, a big catch.
The laws of the Trial of Seven are incredibly rigid. Raymond is only a squire, and only an anointed knight can participate in this melee. He cannot legally take the field, and if he does, the trial is instantly voided.
Right, and this is where I thought the established power structure just had them completely trapped. Like, how do you get around a fundamental law of the trial in front of all these people?
By exploiting a totally different loophole in the exact same legal code. You see, the laws of chivalry dictate that while only a knight can fight in the trial, any knight can make a knight.
Oh, wow.
You don't need a king. You don't need a high septon. Any man who currently holds the title can bestow it.
Which prompts the Laughing Storm to step in. So Ser Lyonel Baratheon, just towering over the mud, draws his massive sword. He commands Raymond to kneel right there in the freezing rain, and he knights the boy on the spot.
It's brilliant.
The sheer irony of it is beautiful. The ruling class uses the rules to oppress people, but Lyonel uses the simplest, most fundamental rule of knighthood to completely dismantle Aerian's trap.
It is a profound manipulation of the system. And then we get a piece of dialogue that honestly echoes through the centuries. Someone asks the newly minted Sir Raymond Fossoway why he painted over his family's proud red apple with that unripe green paint.
And Raymond just stares across the muddy field at his traitor cousin and says, "I would rather be an unripe green apple than a rotten, wormy red one."
I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the macro-historical implications here, the weight of this moment is just staggering. A completely new cadet branch of a noble family, the Green Apple Fossaways, is literally born right there in the mud.
That is so cool.
It wasn't founded by a king's decree, you know? It wasn't forged through some strategic marriage alliance. It was founded entirely on a visceral rejection of corrupt backroom politics. It is a bloodline forged out of pure disgust for the establishment.
It is a genuinely legendary moment of defiance.
Right.
But, and this is a massive but here.
Yeah. The agonizing reality of the math.
Exactly. Raymond's bravery is historic. The birth of the Green Apple Fossaways is fascinating. But mathematically, Raymond only replaces the traitor Stefan. Dunk had 6 men. Stefan left, making it 5. Raymond joined, bringing it back to 6.
He is still 1 man short. And the laws of the Trial of Seven, they do not care about bravery or cool new sigils. You need 7, or you forfeit your limbs and your life.
So the energy on that muddy field just plummets into this chilling, intense silence. The rain is still coming down. Dunk is trapped inside his battered iron half-helm, breathing heavy. He's terrified, knowing he's totally out of time. He spurs his horse and rides frantically along the wooden fence that separates the slaughterhouse of the field from the spectators. And he's staring up at the pale, cold faces of the nobles in their covered, dry stands.
The people who actually make the laws.
Exactly. These are the lords who sing songs about chivalry and justice all day long. And Dunk just screams at them, his voice cracking with pure desperation. "Are there no true knights among you?"
And only the wind answers.
God.
The establishment will not save him. The system is functioning exactly as it was designed to. They will watch him be butchered simply because it is politically inconvenient to intervene.
And across the field, Prince Aerion actually laughs. He knows he has won the legal chess match. The heralds raise their horns to officially call the forfeit. The executioners adjust their grips on their blades. It is over. The hedge knight is dead.
Until the mist at the far edge of the tourney field begins to part.
Oh man, this gives me chills.
The archival records describe this massive, heavily armored warhorse stepping out of the fog, its hooves sinking deep into the mud. The rider is completely silent. He is clad head to toe in shining midnight black armor. And painted on his shield, gleaming in the dull light, is the 3-headed red dragon of House Targaryen.
A Targaryen has just ridden onto the field.
Oh.
But he is not riding to stand with Aerion. He is riding to the side of the beggar knight, to defend Dunk, to stand against his own blood, his own family, and his own Kingsguard.
It is arguably the most shocking paradigm-shifting cliffhanger of this entire historical era. I mean, a senior member of the royal family stepping into a literal massacre to fight his own kin over the life of a peasant from Flea Bottom.
It totally shatters everything we know about how power protects itself. So who is the knight in the Midnight Black Armor? And what horrifying, irreversible chain reaction occurs when the blood of the dragon decides to go to war against itself right there in the mud?
It's a question that changes everything.
It really forces you to examine the structural integrity of a kingdom. Like, what happens when the very institutions built to protect power become so rotten, so undeniably corrupt, that the people at the very top begin to violently tear themselves apart from the inside? When the only true justice left in the realm isn't found in a courtroom or a king's decree, but at the bottom of a muddy field delivered by a rusted iron gauntlet.
It's terrifying to think about.
Think on that. We'll get you next time in the archives.